We started the Otzer Hayunim on page Bays, and I want to go over this Prima Godin. So if you have the Otzer Hayunim in front of you, again, it's always kedai to print it out so you have it. We have an interesting sugya, the way Rashi interprets it, of Sheson b'vasachas. We always understood that Sheson b'vasachas means that he pours 4 cups and he drinks all 4 of them consecutively without reciting the 4 brachos that were assigned to each kos. But Rashi says something different. Rashi interprets the Gemara as a person who pours 4 cups, and then he takes those 4 cups and pours them into one large cup, and he drinks the 4 kosos with hefsekos, meaning, when it's time to drink the kiddush, he drinks molei lugma for the kiddush. When he gets to Gal Yisrael, he drinks the molei lugma for Gal Yisrael, etc., etc. But all the yayin was drunk from one kos. And the Pri Megadim says that he drank a revius, or a molei lugma, which is a revius, bismano, in its proper time. And the Pri Megadim, which you'll see here in the second paragraph on page Bays, says, "Afal pisha posek harbe min shesil l'shsil lo yotza." In other words, afal pisha posek, it's still considered one kos, even though his actual Maisa Shtia takes place in 4 segments at 4 separate times. And the issue here, according to Rashi, is that it's all in one kos. And basically, what the Pri Megadim is presenting to us, I think, is 2 sides of the following coin. Is Dalid Kosos Dalid Shtios, or is Dalid Kosos Shtios mitoch Kosos Shonos? If it's Dalid Shtios, then the Hefsekos should make this into 4 Shtios, even though he's drinking all 4 of them from one kos. Or do we say no, that the takon and the mitzvah is to drink from 4 different kosos, which he should have done and he didn't do? So let's go over the Gemara itself, which he quotes on the bottom of page Aleph. He says, Sheson b'vasachas, yidei yayin yotza, yidei arba kosos lo yotza. So it means that according to Rashi, yidei yayin yotza. As far as the chiyuv yayin is concerned, then all you need is 4 shtios, and the hefsekos set up 4 shtios. You can't call it 1 shtia, since there were, there's an hour between each shtia, etc., and its own bracha, etc. But on the other hand, yidei arba kosos lo yotza, because there's a separate chiyuv, not just to drink 4 shtios of yayin, but to drink 4 kosos of yayin, and that he didn't fulfill. Now, the question is, what can we derive from Rashi about the definition of the mitzvah shtias arba kosos? If you take a look at the paragraph that starts me divrei Pri Megadim, he writes that af LeRashi, im yishtes kol kosos yachad, what would Rashi say about our case, not Rashi's case, but our case, where he drank all 4 kosos consecutively, one after the other? So let's think about the logic of it. If Rashi is telling me that you have 4 shtios and then you yotze yidei yayin, it means because, as the Pri Megadim would have it, they have sekos set up 4 different shtios. Again, as far as Daled Kosos is concerned, that's out. he poured them all into one kos and he drank from one kos. But as far as Yidei Yayin Yotza, in the case of Shnov Masachas, the Pri Megadim interprets it that he had 4 different shtiyos with hefsekos in between. What would be if he drank 4 shtiyos one after the other in 4 different kosos? So then we would say the following, as far as Daled Kos is concerned, it would seem that he would be Yotze because he has 4 kosos. But yet, as far as Yidei Yayin is concerned, we need 4 shtiyos. And what sets up each shtiya as a separate shtiya? It's the hefsekos. And here there was no hefsekos. He drank 4 cups consecutively. He says, Mishum Sherashi lo bir, she'iras kulam lekos achas v'shasa osam miyad. So Rashi doesn't say that he drank them all at one time. And the Pri Megadim insists that he did not drink them all at one time, but rather with hefsekos. And therefore, the implication here is if he drank 4 shtiyos that were set up by 4 kosos, but he drank them one after the other, he has not set up separate shtiyos. Again, we don't have any proof for this. This is all speculation. But intuitively, we sense that according to the Pri Megadim's understanding of Rashi, you must have hefsekos. If you drink all 4, it becomes one shtiya. So that would be really interesting, that we could flip it around. Just the opposite of Shason B'Masachas would be a case where he drank from 4 different kosos, one after the other consecutively, without any hefsekos. And here we might argue that Yidei Yayin lo Yotza because he doesn't have 4 shtiyos of Yayin, but Yidei Daled Kosos Yotza because he has drinking from 4 different kosos. Rashi's case is just the opposite, as we say in Yiddish, Pumfaker. Because in Rashi's frame of reference, what we have is 4 separate shtiyos, and therefore Yidei Yayin Yotza, but they were all from one kos, and Yidei Daled Kosos lo Yotza. But if he drank from 4 different kosos consecutively, then Yidei Yayin lo Yotza, and Yidei Daled Kosos Yotza. Very interesting proposition in the light of the Pri Megadim. Now, in the next paragraph, he sort of summarizes Rashi's Shita, and I'm interested in going on to the classic understanding of the sugya, which is the Rashbam, namely that he drank from 4 different kosos, but he did it from Masachas. But let's just finish this exploration of Rashi with this summary here. He says, according to Rashi, he poured all 4 kosos into one. And the commentaries on Rashi say that according to Rashi, if he drank them one after the other, then Yotzi Yidei Chovaso. Again, according to our understanding, Yotzi Yidei Chovaso means he fulfilled the chova of Daled Kosos, but not necessarily the chova of Yayin, because Yayin requires hefsekos. V'imkein ein klal din brach ala kos bi arba kosos. Right, so Rashi's holding, according to this Karban, Shiari Karban and the Yefei Nayim, again, this is a whole different approach to Rashi than the Pri Megadim that we've been studying. And the assumption is that he drank 4 kosos from one kos, and immediately Bazacher Zeh. So what that means is that according to that interpretation of Rashi, neither did he drink 4 kosos, nor did he have kosos shel bracha. And this approach is rejecting the Pri Megadim, meaning that as long as he had 4 shtiyos from that one kos, it doesn't matter if he, let's say he took a gulp, and then as soon as it went down, he took another gulp. It's every shasiya is a separate shasiya, and therefore Yidei Yayin Yotza. Not like the Pri Megadim who requires hefsekos. We would have said, if we would go with the Pri Megadim's approach, that if he drank 4 gulps from each one a revius from this Kos Gedola, but he drank all four one after the other, he's not Yotze anything. He's not Yotze Mimanavshach. He's not Yotze Yedei Yayin because there are no four Shtios, because there are no Efsekos. He's not Yotze Yedei Dalit Kosos because he only drank from one Kos. Acha Prima Godim Kosos Shim Shosas Kol HaKosos Zu Acher Zu Eina Yotze Yedei Chovasa L'shit Gam L'shitas Rashi V'im Kain Ein Raya She'ein Din Koshel Bracha Be'arba Kosos. So again, what the Prima Godim is pushing into Rashi is that if there are sekos to set up separate shtios, it's because he's accomplishing Amiras Bracha Lakos. And now we get to the Rashbam. The Rashbam says that what Shosim Vasachas, Shosa es Kosos, again in plural, it's not one kos but four kosos, al Shalal Seder Abrochos. Shalal Seder Abrochos. That's the way we were trained to understand this Gemara. Oh. So now the question is, what mitzvah did he fulfill and what mitzvah did he forfeit? And it would seem that on the one hand, he drank four kosos and Yedei Yayin Yotza. But on the other hand, we need Dalit Kosos Shel Bracha, and he didn't recite any of the brachas on the Kosos because he drank them all one after the other. Again, without getting into the question of Afsekos, I mean, we're leaving that out now. So we're going to get to see the Beis Yosef and the way he analyzes this sugya. And finally, we'll get to hopefully the Brisker Row. Yesh levar b'das Rashbam, ma tam shelo yotze kisheshoseh b'vasachas. Ha'im ze mishum she'yisod din arba kosos u din koshel broch. That's the way we understood it. And by drinking the four kosos consecutively, he forfeits the kosos shel bracha. He didn't recite the brachas. Oh, Shatam, who rak mishum, shushoses akosos bevas achas, velo mafsik beinehem. So forget about the brachas now. Leave that discussion out. Do we have hefsekos to separate these Dalit Kosos? And the Rashbam is saying that on one level, he has four Kosos. That's the good news. But the bad news is that he has only one Shasiyah because he was not mafsik between them in the second side. Again, the first side is what you call gleich. It's smooth, it's simple. The Rashbam is simply saying that he forfeited the kiyum of brach halakos. And what he ends up with is the kiyum of Dalit Kosos. Fine. But now we're saying something entirely different. It's possible that according to the Rashbam, he doesn't have four shasiyos because he was not mafsik between them. So this really takes us back to our original Chakira, which I call, where do you start, where do you end? Do you start with the mitzvah Dalit Kosos and then you introduce the brachos? Or do you begin with the brachos and you end with the Dalit Kosos? And that was the way we formulated a lot of the issues here. Like, for example, the Yushalmi that insists that he already recited Hallel in the Beis HaKnesses. So when he gets to Hallel, he drinks the fourth kos without Hallel because he can't repeat Hallel. He's already recited Hallel. And you see that the koshel bracha is not a it's not a fundamental factor in the equation because he has no bracha for the drinking of the fourth kos. And then we have the opposite polar extreme that even in terms of the koshel bracha, you need the daled kosos of Leil HaPesach. So if he drank for Kiddush, that which was possible for Kiddush, he wasn't even Yotzei daled kosos. Because the daled kosos are kosos shel bracha, and you start with the bracha, and then you end with the daled kosos. So again, it's a question where you start, where you end. What's the ikar, what's the tofel? And in this second side, he's suggesting that according to Rashi, the problem here of Shasiyah b'Masachas, which again, forget about Rashi, I meant to say the Rashbam. I'll call you right back. I'm so sorry, I'm giving a shir now. Let me just shut off. I forgot to shut off my phone, sorry. So again, we're going with the second shot in Rashi that the issue here is one shasiyah. Again, although it was from 4 different kosos according to the Rashbam, but it was one shasiyah without any hefsekos. And the issue is, can we consider that as 4 shasiyos when there was no hefsek between them? But it has nothing to do with bracha. Again, now we're really plunging into the mitzvah of daled kosos, derech cherus, leil pesach, call it sipri tis mitzrayim, chayavon l'irus esatzmo. Forget about koshel bracha. That's not the issue. And then it turns out that according to this pshat in Rashi, I'm sorry, the Rashbam, again, in addition to the point that we just made now, that the issue of daled koshel bracha is not on the agenda right now, the mitzvah of daled kosos now splits into 2 parts. One part is daled shasios, and the other part is daled kosos. So the daled kosos he has, because he drank from 4 different cups, according to the Rashbam. The Masechet means it's all one shtir. So what does it mean? Yedei yayin lo yotza. And it sounds like what's going on here is that every shasiyah has to be its own independent ma'aser shtir. But if he drinks them consecutively, he hasn't achieved one consecutive. I should say it the other way around. If he drinks them consecutively, then at the end of the day, all he has is one shasiyah. He's got daled kosos. Like, for example, if we introduce the concept of the 4 lashonos of geula, so he has 4 kosos. And what was the other concept? It just slipped my mind for a second. Sorry. The other concept was simcha. That yayin brings a person to a state of simcha, and he has now experienced the liberation from slavery, and therefore he has to drink wine to express that simcha. And it could be that if you don't separate the shtiyos, then you don't have 4 shtiyos of simcha. Just 1 second. So as far as daled lashon shel geula is concerned, so it could be that if he has 4 kosos, maybe that's sufficient. It's unclear. Now we get to the Beis Yosef. Arba Kosos, Efshol Lekaimon below Birchas Hamazon. Like somebody once asked me, what happens if he doesn't have matzah? Can he fulfill the mitzvah of Daled Kosos? If he doesn't have matzah, he's not going to bench. And the third of the four Kosos is Birchas Hamazon. And says the Beis Yosef, he can mekayim arba kosos without Birkas Hamazon. And this is reminiscent to the Yerushalmi, that you could be mekayim daled kosos without Hallel. Afal pisha kol kos tiknu al davar miyuchad, meaning on its separate bracha. The echad mea kosos tiknu al Birkas Hamazon. Mikol makom im shasan shesan shalol say that shetiknu chacham vada yotzim. I don't know. This is a very difficult Beis Yosef to make sense out of it. I mean, it says Shesam v'asachas yidei yain yotzi yidei arba kosos lo yotzi. And now he's saying that okay, so he didn't make the brachas, big deal. He didn't make Birkas Hamazon, etc., but he certainly was yotzi. Are you all together with me on this problem? I need you to identify what they call in Hebrew hizdahut. Misery loves company here. The Beis Yosef says the fact that he left out the brachas is irrelevant. He's still yotze. So how do we reconcile that with the Gemara? The Gemara says Shesam v'asachas, and the Rashbam says that being shalol seder brachos is he dei daled kosos lo yotza. Is the Beis Yosef a third shita here? He's not Rashi and he's not the Rashbam. Maybe he's the third shita. Yeah, but forget about that. It can't be a third shita because the Gemara says Yidei Daled Kosos Lo Yotze. So I'm just thinking out loud here, is it possible? The Beis Yosef is also the author of the Shulchan Aruch. And I'm wondering if in the style, the Beis Yosef is not the same as the Shulchan Aruch in style. Again, it's the same author, obviously. So we don't want to find contradictions between the Beis Yosef and the Shulchan Aruch. But they're two different purposes. The Beis Yosef is not the Shulchan Aruch, meaning he's not pasketing and formulating rulings l'maisa. He's going through the sugya. But l'halacha, he's going to have to paskin that in a case where he leaves out the brachos and he drinks the 4 Kosos Shalol Seder brachos, then he did not fulfill his mitzvah of Daled Kosos, because the Daled Kosos Shal Bracha. But in the Beis Yosef, maybe he's just analyzing it conceptually, or shall we say theoretically, and he's raising the logical possibilities here. Let's say, for example, you don't have Birkas HaMazon. There's no matzah on the table. That year they couldn't get a hold of matzah. So the Beis Yosef says he'll still drink the third course of Birkas HaMazon even without the bracha. Oh, I think he himself here is sensitive to the stira between the Beis Yosef and the Shulchan Aruch, because he writes, "Af sheposak haShulchan Aruch kedivrei Rashbam." Which means that he did not fulfill his mitzvah of Daled Kosos. Mikol makom hu savur, and who here means the Beis Yosef, but it's the same person as the Shulchan Aruch. Hu savur sheyotzi yedei cholvaso gam im lo shas al seder habrachos. So I think hu savur. You see, yeah. Go ahead. Did you want to say something, Mitch?
No.
Oh. The question is, what do these words "hu savar" mean? Hu savar halacha l'maisa, or maybe hu savar in the conceptual world, that there's a mitzvah of Daled Kosos, and with or without the brachos that were individually allotted and assigned to each one of the Daled Kosos, you're yotze the mitzvah Daled Kosos. It stands on its own. He's not paskini halacha l'maisa what to do. Wait a second. You see, I think let's go over it again. Arba Kosos efshel l'kaima below Birkas HaMazon. I asked you about a case where he has no matzah. I don't think that's what he's talking about here. He's talking about a case where he drank the Kosos without the brachos. Let's say, for example, at the beginning of the Seder, he's not yet ready for Birkas HaMazon. He hasn't washed yet, and he hasn't eaten matzah yet, and he drinks the 4 Kosos. So he hasn't yet recited Birkas HaMazon. And he says, Shasan Shalal ala Seder is Vadayotzi. But he's not telling you what to do later on when he gets to Birkas HaMazon, or for that matter, any of the 4 Kosos. Al Divrei Beis Yosef Torah Pri Chodesh and Divrei Rashbam Mefurishim Lo Shesan Al Seder Brachos Lo Yotzi Yedei Cholvaso. Achronim Kosu Shein Kavodas HaRashbam Shatam Shelo Yotzi Kishashosam Vasachas Umishum shalosh shason al seder abrochos. So these Achronim are interpreting the Rashbam in a different light, like the second side that we had before, that there are no separate shtiyos over here because there was no hefsek between them. Now he writes, Lachein Posak HaBeis Yosef, Shem Hifsik Beineim, Af Shalosh Son Al Seder HaBrachos Yotzi Yedei Chovasa. So he's saying that the Beis Yosef puts all the emphasis on Shtios Mechulakos. Yeah, but 1 second, but how do you set up Shtios Mechulakos if he's not benching and reciting Birkas HaMazon? You follow my question? The Achronim is saying that the Beis Yosef is paskening that it doesn't bother me that there was no Seder HaBrachos over here, but rather what bothers the Beis Yosef and the Gemara itself in Shesod Vasachas is v'lo hifsik beineim, that he has one continuous shtiyah. But the Beis Yosef says, Yatza. I don't know. This is going to have to. I think I'm going to have to work this out. Unless you know Pshat here, I'm gonna leave this for tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem. Let's get back to the Amudei Hod. Do you have that? Okay. So we got up to page Tes in the Amudei Hod. Oschaf Gimel. And he gives you a bit of a summary here in Oschaf Gimel of the Rosh. The Afim Yesh Behilchos Dalit Kosos Dim Yuchot Shel Shtias Yain Greda. The Rosh recognizes that as opposed to any koshel bracha like Kiddush, etc., with regard to Dalit Kosos, there's a requirement of Shtia. However, he says, Mikomakom Shape Yesh Lo Chiach Din Rov Kos. The Rosh is medayik from the Gemara that you can derive conclusions about the minimum amount of wine you have to drink for any koshel bracha from Dalit Kosos. And that is Rov Kos, which again, as we've said 1,000,001 times, the Rosh identifies as Molei Lugmav. B'chol koshel bracha. So that despite the fact that the Dalit Kosos on Leil Pesach has an additional kiyum, we'll call it of Yayin, Shesias Yayin, but nevertheless, the basic nitty-gritty framework or structure of the mitzvah of Dalit Kosos is Kosos Shel Bracha. And if the requirement in Dalit Kosos on Leil Pesach is Shtias Rov Kos, and that applies to any kosher bracha. Because essentially, according to the Rosh, these are 4 Kosos shel bracha. That's the mitzvah of Daled Kosos. On top to boot, they added a Shasiya element and a requirement of Derech Cherus, but the nitty-gritty essential, if you strip it of all its fancy tosafot, and you get down to the main course, then what you have is Daled Kosos shel bracha. And therefore, if in Daled Kosos Leil Pesach the requirement is Rav Kos, the same is going to apply to any Kos shel bracha, including Avdol. That's the Shittas HaRosh. Now, if this be the case, let's take it one step further. In Daled Kosos, on Leil Pesach, the Shtia has to be arevolo, it has to be pleasant to him. Hence, he doesn't drink Yain Chai, the concentrated wine, but he dilutes it through Meziga, and he needs Yain Mazu. That now is going to be a requirement for every kosher bracha. Meziga, to dilute the concentrated wine b'daled kosos, who did b'chol kosher bracha. And we had a problem with that because there's a Gemara in Brachos that seems to indicate that you take Yain Chai for a kosher bracha. You remember the 10 requirements in a kosher bracha, one of which was Yain Chai. But he's saying now, according to the Rosh, once we derive from Daled Kosos that need Yain Mazug, then every kosher bracha needs Yain Mazug. And again, this should be connected with the Tosos at the beginning of our limud, that Tosos says that the Ani has to be supplied with Daled Kosos, but not necessarily Bnei Abayis. Because again, the Rosh is on that team ruling that the essence of the mitzvah is Daled Kosos shel bracha, and Shtia is only an add-on, and therefore it's enough to supply the Malabayis with Daled Kosos shel Yain. As Tosos says, my Gora mi Kiddush. The Kevet Bilvad Din Shtias Yain Yeshna Mitzvah Shal Amir Al Akos. I don't like the language here so much. Milvad. I mean, this is the Ikar Mitzvah. Is Amir Al Akos. Ustima Stivri Agamar the boy Miziga Uboy Rov Kos. And when the Gemara says these are the requirements for Daled Kosos, it's referring to Kosos Shel Bracha. Including the basic kiyum of kos shel bracha. Shema mino de kol kos shel bracha to unim meziga, require meziga, to unim shtias rov kos. So in sum, the Rosh is going to derive 2 halachic nafkaminas in kos shel bracha from Daled Kosos. Nafkamina number 1, Rov Kos, and nafkamina number 2, Meziga. And you and I would have said perhaps these dinim are singular and reflective of the nature of the mitzvah of Daled Kosos B'Leil Pesach as a separate, unique entity, but it doesn't really impact on the din of kos shel bracha, and that's exactly what the Rosh is coming lafuki. That the laws of Meziga and Rov Kos are not anchored in the special, unique mitzvah of Daled Kosos, but rather anchored in the universal requirement of a kos shel bracha. That kiyum of kos shel bracha requires mazug, yain mazug, and requires the shti of Rov Kos. Now, in Chav Dalet, he wants to know what's the source for these two dimensions that overlap in the mitzvah Dalet Kosos. Number one, Amiras HaBracha HaKos. Number two, Shtiyas HaKos. And that we're going to derive from the Gemara on Kuf Chesam and Beis. He calls it Girsas HaRosh. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Bar Shmuel, Dalet Kosos Halolu Tzarich Sheyeh Bahem Kedei Mezigas HaKos. So what does it mean, tzarich? The language tzarich indicates that the ideal mitzvah in its perfect form would be completed if he's got kidei mezigas kos yofa. Mezigas kos yofa. So what's the opposite of Kidei Mezigas Kos Yafa? That's called Shason Chad. He drinks the concentrated, undiluted wine. Yatsa Yedei Dalet Kosos. Yedei Cheres Lo Yatsa. So I don't understand. On the one hand, Shmuel says that Tzarich Sheyeh Bahem Kidei Mezigas Kos Yafa. Let's take out the Gemara and see, maybe there's something missing here. Kuf Chesam and Beis. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Mamish at the top of Kuf Chesam and Beis, Arba Kos Halol Tzarich Sheyeh Bahem Kidei Mezigas Kos Yafa. So in my translation here, I know, John, you have the Masechet as well. He writes, what does it mean, Kidei Mezigas Kos Yafa? Hu Rova Revius Halug. Oh, I understand. She'achar shivim zegenu b'mayim yesh shi'uro revius halug. Okay, now I understand what's going on. The ratio of water to concentrated wine is 4-1, and therefore, what Shmuel is requiring in Dalet Kosos is kidei mezigas kos yafa, which means that at the end of the day, after you do the meziga, you'll end up with a lug of yayin. So it means that you begin with a quarter of a revius, one second, the math doesn't work out for me. If you have a quarter of revius, then you only have to add 3 other quarters. I thought the ratio was 4-1. I guess the ratio is 3-1. He says it here in the name of the Rashbam in Masechet Shabbos. The Rashbam is quoting the Gemara in Shabbos. Shal kol chelek echad shel yain mozgin shlosha chalokim shel mayim. So I stand corrected. It's not a ratio of 4-1 water to yain, but rather 3-1. So what does he end up with? he ends it with a kos that has in it a revius of yayin. Wow, that's really small. What else? Now it says, okay, so he's got the revius of yayin in the kos. No, then it says Shason Chai. So Shason Chai means what? He only has a quarter of revius?
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to know what Art Scroll says.
Oh, what does he say?
It says that the total has to be a revius. So each cup has a quarter revius. When you mix it with the 3 parts of water, you wind up with a revius of wine, the
Right.
diluted wine.
How does article interpret the next 2 words? Shison Chai. Does article say something else here? How much wine does he have in the cost now? He didn't dilute it.
Oh, you mean pure? The idea, Sanchai, wait.
Just the next 2 words in the Gemara. Shison Chai.
If one drank them pure, he was fulfilled.
That's all he says. No footnote or anything?
Yeah, there's a footnote. The footnote says one used full cups of pure wine for the 4 cups rather than cups of properly diluted wine. I don't even know what that means.
I'll tell you what, the word pure is what we call concentrate. Now, I don't remember today. I don't know if it's still customary, but in my day, we used to buy what was it called pre-gut. You remember those like orange juice concentrates, and they had a picture of how much water you have to add. So that I think when he used the word pure, he's referring to that concentrate. But what I'm trying to figure out, and this footnote doesn't help me so far, is how much wine does he have in the cup? Does he have only 1/4 of a revius of undiluted concentrated wine?
I think I understand the footnote now. It's saying that each of the 4 cups was 1 revius of pure wine. It wasn't diluted. It was a revius of concentrated wine.
That makes sense. It's a full revius because otherwise you don't have the shear of Shmuel. Shmuel just established that you need a revius of yayin in the cups. But the chiddush here is that you don't need a revius of diluted wine. You could have a revius of concentrated wine. From that 1 cup of wine, you could have made 4 cups of wine if you would have diluted it. But you didn't do so. So you drank 4 cups of undiluted wine. Each cup has a full revius of it. Now, I'm wondering how you're going to survive this. Your head starts spinning on you. Okay. So again, we'll keep the Gemara open for a minute, and we'll go back to this page that we were reading. And he says the following. Right. Omar Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, Daled Kos Halot Tzok Sheyeh Bahem Kidei Nezigas Kos Yofe Sheson Chai Yotzer. Yidei Yotzer. Oh, so he's now combining, he's connecting the Gemara above of Shmuel, right? Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel with Rava's shall I say, qualification of Shmuel. Right? Sheson Chayotza, that's a quote from Shmuel. And the Gemara is repeating Shmuel's words because it's going to attach a commentary of Rava. Amar Rava, Yidei Yayin Yotza. What did Shmuel mean when he said Sheson Chai Yotza? Yidei Yayin Yotza, Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza. In other words, to achieve Derech Cheres, you need Yayin Mazu. It's got to be diluted. The concentrated wine is enough for Yidei Yayin Yotza, but not Yidei Dalid Kosos Shel Cheres. For that, you need diluted wine. Okay, now we get to Sheson B'vas Achas. Right, so he drinks 4 cups consecutively without the brachos. And once again, he says Yidei Yayin Yotza. But now he says Yidei Dalid Kosos Lo Yotza. I don't know, he leaves out the word Cheres now. I don't know if that's significant. But let's just see if that's what it says in our Gemara. Sheson B'vas Achas. Rav Omar Yidei Yayin Yotza. Yidei Kosos Lo Yotza. So as far as I can tell, the Girsa, the Rosh, which is not exactly our Girsa, equates Yain Chai with Sheson B'vas Achas. And both have the same din, namely that he's Yotze Yidei Dalid Kosos. I'm sorry. He's Yotze Yidei Dalid. No, it's not the same. I made a mistake. Let's go through it again. Sheson Chai Yotze Yidei Dalid Kosos. Yidei Cheres Lo Yotze. Sheson B'vas Achas. Yidei Yayin Yotza. Yidei Dalid Kosos Lo Yotza. So I'm going to make a leap of faith here. I don't know if this is correct. When it says on the bottom of page Tes, Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza, I'm going to add the word Yayin. I don't know. Again, I can't promise you this is correct, but it just, that's what occurs to me. So let me, I need a sort of like a whiteboard here, a chart. We have, on top of the chart, we'll have two columns coming down vertically. We'll have Dalid Kosos, and we'll have Yayin Derech Cherus. Those are the two categories. On the right side, we'll have Sheson Chai, and then below that, we'll have Sheson V'Masachas. So as far as Chai is concerned, Yidei Dalid Kosos Yotza, but Yidei Yayin Lo Yotza. As far as Sheson V'Masachas is concerned, it's just the opposite. Yidei Yayin Yotza, Yidei Dalid Kosos Lo Yotza. Correct? It's exactly the flip, the reverse. Let's try to understand this logically, because sometimes if you understand logically, it's a lot easier to remember it. Jeff is not here. I thought I saw him, but I guess he had to go. So he's saying the following. Let's try it logically. If he drinks it high, so then the element of yayin is missing. I mean, this is not the normal way you drink yayin and enjoy the taste of yayin. So as far as Dalid Kosos is concerned, you can't deny that he drank Dalid Kosos. It's yayin. It does have a chal shem yayin. It might not be so tasty. So yidei cherus, meaning shesia derech cherus, or shall we call it yayin, shesias yayin derech cherus, lo yotza. Because this yayin is not the tastiest yayin. But yidei dalid kosos, he has dalid kosos. I could add here, which I don't know if we should or not, that on each kos he made a separate bracha. But in Shson Vas Achas, so as far as the yayin is concerned, the yayin is very tasty. It's Muslim, so he has cherus. But Yidei Dalid Kosos Lo Yotza. So again, if we introduce the bracha element here, I understand what's going on. That it was Shalom Aseda. The Nire, the Mefarish Rosh, the Masha Amru the Shason Chai. Yidei Dalid Kosos Yotza. I thought it meant Dalid Kosos Bracha. Let's see what he says. Hainu di Yotza Gam Yidei Chovas Mitzvahs Yayin. Shehu Shesias Dalid Kosos Yayin. Gam Yidei Chovas Mitzvahs Dalid Kosos. Shudin Amir Alakos. So forget about this concept of a shtia revelo, that it's only tasty if it's mozug. He's saying no, that even as far as the mitzvah of shtias yayin is concerned, he did drink wine, albeit it was undiluted, concentrated wine. What I don't understand is, he's saying that in Yayin Chai, he gets the whole gamut. He fulfills the entire mitzvah. Shtiyas daled kosos shel yayin, and mitzvahs daled kosos shel bracha. But before, on the bottom of page Tes, he said the opposite. He said son chai yotzi de daled kosos. All right, he's got daled kosos shel bracha, but yidei cheres lo yotzi. Well, listen, there are three different categories here. So that's something that we have to really take under advisement. So basically, I'm just looking at my clock. Okay, we have to stop now. But we have two things on the agenda for tomorrow, and I'm hoping, we'll be able to figure this out by tomorrow. First of all, we have the problem of the Beis Yosef, which we didn't understand how to reconcile the theory here between the Beis Yosef and the Rashbam and an inner theory between the Beis Yosef and the Shulchan Aruch. So that's over here in the Otzer Ayunim. Number two, in terms of the way the Amudei Hod presents the Rosh, there seems to be a theory in the Rosh. So there's a lot to work on here. Okay, then, so I'm not going to even turn this off. I'm just going to shut off the recording here.